Hello and welcome to the solution launch video for TransCelerate, a privacy framework for clinical data reuse, secondary data use in the pharmaceutical industry. My name is Jeppe Manuel. I'm the Principal R&D Data Privacy Specialist at Novo Nordisk. At TransCelerate, I've been the topic team lead of the GDPR data reuse topic under the Interpretations of Clinical Guidances and Regulations workstream. In this video, I will go through at a high level how we developed our framework, what you can find in it, and how best to utilize it. However, as I will just be brushing the surface of what is covered in the completed document, please refer to the framework for a full list of considerations and complete perspectives. As a note, TransCelerate provides the framework for information purposes only. Because regulations and guidances typically change over time, each user of the framework remains responsible for determining for themselves what regulations and guidances apply to their circumstances and how best to comply with these. With the introduction of the GDPR in the EU in 2018, a new paradigm for personal data protection was established. As a result, the GDPR has become a global inspiration for data protection legislation. However, there are challenges when it comes to personal data protection within clinical research. There's a high degree of uncertainty that exists around how to interpret privacy regulations for clinical research, both within and across companies. This uncertainty can lead to less reuse of existing data and subsequently not realizing the full value of such data. These challenges extend to the secondary use of clinical data. Without a set of principles to guide data reuse within a company, there is a chance that opportunities to leverage existing clinical data are missed. From this challenge, TransCelerate saw an opportunity to build a team of subject matter experts and create a solution to help increase data reuse, with benefits for all stakeholders, including patients. The GDPR data reuse team came together and created a framework that intends to decrease the time companies spend addressing privacy questions related to research and increase the potential reuse of clinical data. The principles provided by this framework can be applied to research activities that leverage the secondary use of clinical data and thus increase data reuse and further efforts to improve treatments for patients. This framework is meant for companies developing their internal data reuse processes in compliance with privacy regulations. However, it could also be relevant for cross-company research collaboration and subsequent sharing of data. The framework can be found on TransCelerate's website under the Interpretation of Clinical Guidances and Regulations initiative page. 6 principles are outlined, which aim to bridge the gap between competing ethical, scientific, and legal considerations. I will cover each of these principles briefly, but for the complete perspective on each, please refer to the framework. The first principle is to ensure a governance framework. Companies should have research governance in place to evaluate plans involving the secondary use of data. How this governance is set up depends on the company's practices and the scope and risk profile of the research. The second principle concerns the compatibility of data use. A 2-tiered approach is recommended. First, a predefined list of compatible uses should be developed. This framework includes a tool that can be used as a starting point for such a list. The second tier, for legacy data or new reuse purposes not covered by the defined list, requires a more comprehensive assessment of compatibility. The third principle is the balancing test. A risk assessment should be conducted, including risks related to processing of personal data, and ensures relevant mitigating actions are implemented. Principle 4 concerns the basis for research, applying a sound scientific approach. In order to claim that something is research, the basic elements of sound scientific research need to be applied. Principle 5 is about the essence of privacy, protecting the privacy and confidentiality of the research participant. Ensuring the privacy of the research participant is about ensuring responsible use of their data consistent with their expectations. Ensuring confidentiality means steps are implemented to keep personal data and information unknown to others to the extent possible. Principle 6 is to demonstrate oversight and accountability. To do this, decisions must be documented, and traceability of how personal data is processed is needed. In addition to the principles, a best practice process is included in the framework. The model consists of 6 stages, and each stage then has a number of steps within it to consider. Here I will go through the stages at a high level, but for the detail of each of these and the steps involved, please refer to the framework itself. Stage 1 is to document the research objective. This stage is about creating a record of data processing activity and includes the aforementioned risk assessment. The second stage is to verify compatibility with ethical principles. Here, the researcher would compare their proposal to the company's list of compatible uses and ensure that the activity is aligned with applicable ethical principles. At stage 3, approval is obtained for the research proposal. It is important that someone other than the researcher approves the proposal, ensuring that it is in line with the company's procedures and the research area. At stage 4, the researcher can conduct his or her research, following a sound scientific approach and ensuring adequate documentation of the research activity and the use of personal data. Stage 5 is about ensuring knowledge is shared. Research results are compiled and shared, either internally or externally. Stage 6 is closing the project. This includes confirming project closeout and that personal data and relevant documentation has either been deleted or archived. The appendices of the framework includes these tools intended to support the reuse of clinical data. These tools are also made available as separate files on the TransCelerate website. The first tool is a glossary, where we have proposed a set of definitions to support the use of a more consistent terminology across the industry. This tool provides a quick overview of the best practice process model, aligning the different stages and steps with the principles. It is intended for a researcher or a team to use to quickly determine what is required to reuse personal data in a research context. This tool provides a general definition of which activities are considered primary or secondary uses for clinical research, and is intended as a starting point for developing a company's own list of predefined compatible uses. The final tool is a reuse assessment form, intended as a template for companies to use when assessing the legitimate compatible reuse of data, and could also be used as a record of data processing activity. Examples of completed forms can be found within the framework itself. I've talked about what is in the framework, but who might benefit from and be able to leverage it? Some key organizational areas and roles that we believe would benefit from these tools are included in this slide. As you begin your journey on improving your data privacy processes around data reuse, please share this framework and the tools with relevant parties. In closing, if you have any questions about the framework, this initiative, or TransCelerate, please send us an email at the address posted here. You can always find our latest solutions under the Interpretation of Clinical Guidances and Regulations initiative on the TransCelerate website. We would love to hear about how you've been able to leverage these tools. If you have a story on how you've implemented these solutions or the framework itself, please share it, completing the Share Your Implementation Experience section on the page found at this address. This concludes the presentation. Thank you for watching, and good luck with your future clinical research endeavors.